If intellectual happiness is like $1, egoistical happiness is like $1.50. Spiritual happiness is like $1 billion.
One of the most knowledgeable human beings that I've come across. He's a monk affiliated with ISKCON. He goes by the name of Gauranga Das Prabhu.
We only have visibility over a small slice of reality. We only see the tip of the iceberg. The mind is very difficult to control, to make tough. Therefore, you need two things. First is persistence, and second is abstinence.
What do you think are the keys to being happy?
Happiness is at 5 levels: physical happiness, mental happiness, intellectual happiness, egoistical happiness, spiritual happiness. And spiritual happiness is unlimited, unceasing, ever growing, ever fresh.
What advice would you give to those people who are struggling to find their purpose?
Definitely, the biggest challenge is.
Gaurangas Das, thank you very much for coming onto the show. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike, for having me with you.
This is going to be a very interesting conversation for me. It's something I've been looking forward to for a while because I don't think I've actually had a conversation or an interaction with a monk before. So I have many questions for you, and I'm sure you have a lot of wisdom to spread to my listeners.
Definitely. My pleasure.
I'm curious to know how your journey began. Like, how did you get into becoming a monk and this journey of spirituality?
Well, Mike, I was studying in an engineering school and in my undergrad, and I came across the phenomena of one of my friends trying to commit suicide, and it set me thinking about what's the idea of death. And so, as I started contemplating more about death, I started reading the Bhagavad Gita, which is an ancient text spoken by Krishna to Arjuna. And then the concept of death was explained very interestingly, where it was said that all types of fear are caused because of change. And the change is in the change in our identities with respect to our body, with respect to our family, with respect to our children, with respect to money, with respect to career, with respect to influence, with respect to social acceptance. Each one of these items, we create an identity. And when some of these things change, the identity changes. Like, for example, if someone has an identity that I'm an excellent businessman, and suddenly the market crashes and he becomes bankrupt. So his identity is I'm an excellent businessman, but the balance sheet is showing that he's become bankrupt. So there is a conflict between what the reality is presenting and what his identity has been. So this change in identity creates anxiety, stress, insecurity, fear. And therefore, when anything changes, it creates anxiety. At the moment of death, all the sum total of cumulative identities we have, they're all taken away at once. And that's where we experience the highest degree of fear. So the Gita brings in a very interesting concept that death is not just, end of life, and it is not a full stop, but it's a comma where the journey continues in a different destination, in a different domain. And the most interesting part of the Gita is that destination can be planned, chosen, and engineered depending on how you are able to deal with your mind and your thoughts and your desires. And therefore, I found this whole concept of, planning for one's next life's destination so interesting that I thought that rather than becoming a financial planner or a health planner or an educational planner, property planner, I would become the post death next life planner. And to do that, you have to plan for your thoughts and your desires in this life. So I chose to become a teacher of the Gita, a researcher of the Gita. And as a result, the most conducive environment for that is as a monk. So a Hindu monk is typically a researcher and a professor on the sacred wisdom texts of the Hindu literatures of the Hinduism. So that's
Do
my
they? Does a Hindu monk vary and differ from a Buddhist monk and a Christian monk, or are they all on a similar journey but perhaps teaching slightly differently?
yeah. If you say that is an engineering professor same as a business school professor, is the same as a medical professor. So as professor, they are same because they are all in the teaching field of the academics. They are doing research. They are doing teaching. They are helping students gain capability in education. But engineering is a different subject, and medical is different subject. Similarly, Hinduism has its certain priorities and certain dimensions which they prioritize. Buddhism has their different dimensions which they prioritize. Basically, all of these religions, whether you speak of Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, Judaism, all of these can be encapsulated into five things only. Number one, where is our starting point in life's journey? Where am I now? Second, where do I aspire to go? What is my destination? Third, what will be the experience on reaching my destination? Fourth, what will be the journey I prefer to take to reach that destination? And fifth, what will be the obstacles I'll face in this journey? So, depending on how you, if I just make these five parameters and leave the right hand side blank, depending on how I fill the right hand side answer to these five questions, the name of the particular religion or a subsect within the religion would change. So that's how, like, even within Christianity, depending on these five, my starting point, ending point, experience, journey, path, and obstacles. I may be known as Catholic or a Protestant or a Lutheran or different denominations of even Christianity change because of one of these five has changed in a very nuanced or subtle manner. So that's the whole idea. So therefore, we are all monks, but Buddhist monk has a different idea of where the soul's destination will be and what will be the experience. And a Hindu monk has a different idea, and a Christian, but all of them are having one thing in common. We are all helping people invest in their consciousness, desires, and thoughts in this life in such a way that the return on their investment is given to them after death in the next life in a certain way. So, in one sense, we are also in the business of investment, but we are in the business of investing our thoughts and desires in our mind.
And do all of them have to give up 7 out of the 8 items in the material world? Because I've heard you say that being a monk, you have to give up wife, children, house, vehicles, money, acceptance from society, control over one's career and progress. And the one thing that you keep is the body. Is this the same for all?
Uh, well, when it comes to the definition of a monk, most of the traditions follow what you just said. And
Yeah.
it's more or less common for most. Yes.
Is there one thing in particular which you have struggled the most with in terms of having to sacrifice it and give it up, or has your journey been fairly straightforward? Because I'm curious to know from your point, do you ever have days where you think like, oh, it would have been nice to have children, or it would be nice to have a partner? Do you ever think that, or does it never faze you?
Well, I don't face that part, but definitely the biggest challenge is to cultivate humility
Hmm.
because, you know, even when you renounce all of these other external things, to renounce ego is not easy. And to renounce the conception that I know better than others, or no, I know better than, even some of the others who are more experienced. That is very challenging, and it needs a regular cultivation to make sure that we remain down to earth and humble. So, cultivating humility on a continuous basis, and especially to remain tolerant in the midst of difference of opinion, that is always very,
Speaking
very
of speaking of ego, you mentioned, is ego always a bad thing, or can it sometimes be a good thing? Because it can sometimes be a catalyst for personal growth and professional growth, but
I
it's
would I
often
yes,
associated with negativity.
yes. I say ego is like salt in food. You don't want it too much, you don't want it too little, but you want it just the right amount, so that ultimately ego means identity. What we are apprehensive about is the false ego, is which when one thinks that I am greater than what I actually am, and being too much eager for honor and appreciation of others. So therefore,
Mhm.
you're right. Ego by itself is not negative; it is positive. It's the identity each one of us are seeking. But the false ego is something which is what is known as false pride. So false pride is something which we are trying to overcome, because it is overestimation of one's own abilities beyond what is required. Biggest conflicts, more than 25 million people lost their lives between the two world wars, and primarily because of the unbridled, uncontrolled, false pride of a few leaders who could not be, convinced by all the leaders across the world on how they should remain with restraint. So therefore, false
Mhm.
pride is the one with problem.
I think I, I s- I see this quite a lot, and even with myself, I have sometimes struggled when you start to see some degree of success, whether it be getting more followers, getting more viewers on your videos, starting to have success in your business, your career. It feels like everything's going good, and then that you can start to build this ego that you know more than others, that you are the best, that you're better than other people. How can people who do start to see some degree of success practice humility and just become more humble and bring their ego down?
I think the most important principle is that we need mentorship. Anyone who has remained under a mentor would always remain under check. So, therefore, just like sportsmen, even after they have become stars or superstars, or even uh, famous actors and actresses, even if they have been in the industry for long, they always need a coach. They always need a director, and we would need in our personal life someone who knows us very well. So we need somebody with intimacy. Second, with proper intention to help and serve us and to support us. Third, with the right intelligence. And fourth, with a good degree of interpersonal skills to be able to communicate even kind of changes which we should be making, or warnings which we need to hear. Because there are two elements of a coach or a teacher. One is education, and the second is empathy. Only if a person gives education or data or messages but doesn't seem to express the right kind of empathy, then it becomes difficult to accept the message. So for a person to accept feedbacks on a regular basis, willingly, openly, with enthusiasm, would require a very qualified mentor with whom we can connect on an ongoing basis, irrespective of how successful we become or how much we grow in life, who would have the skill to not only give us education, but also have empathy.
Did you yourself ever have coaches, or were you just surrounded by like-minded individuals and guided by religion?
I myself have a spiritual guru, and his name is Radhanath Swami, and he has been right there from 1993 in my life. And he has been the major factor in keeping me grounded. Uh, for many years, some of the suggestions or feedbacks he would give would be like thunderbolts on my heart, that why is he speaking like this, or why is he so heavy, or why this kind of a decision is being made. But then with repeated experiences, I realized the value of having someone who was able to see what you and me may not be able to see. And their wisdom, their depth, their willingness to extend themselves to share things which normally we would not be able to process on our own, has been very, very powerful. Like, for example, I was doing very well as a monk and doing outreach, teaching in colleges and universities, primarily as a trainer, a coach, a teacher. And then this was 2009, and he and Radhanath Swami told me that we need to develop an eco village, which is 85 kilometers away from Mumbai. So when I first heard that, my first reaction was, how is it related to me? Because I have nothing to do with either eco or a village. I'm a preacher or teacher of wisdom in schools and colleges in a full blown city like Mumbai. So how does that eco village concept ever be relevant for me? And I just couldn't handle that. But then he had larger vision, and he said that the way the environmental degradation is happening globally, we as spiritual organizations also need to be part of the solution. And he said one important thing, that you know to speak about devotion to God is easy, but you have to express it by moving out of your comfort zone. And therefore, you may be comfortable in your area of expertise, you may be doing well, and then you may feel, oh, why to start a new thing all over again? But in the long run, this is what the world needs, and this is what you would appreciate in due course of time. And you know I would say that to our credit, we accepted that, although we were not convinced. And today the eco village is accredited to 4 or 5 UN agencies, including United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Economic and Social Council, Biodiversity Council, Committee for Combating Desertification. And we are getting almost 1.5 million visitors every year, who come there to learn about sustainability, to learn about spirituality, and make a transformation in their lives. And most importantly, I have learned so much about the entire ecosystem of environmentalism and sustainability in this process. So I began this journey in 2009. Now this is 2024. So if I look back over the 15 years journey, when I began, the whole proposal of an eco village sounded ridiculous to me. And based on my situation then, I could not relate with it. But then when you have someone who's coming from 10,000 feet above the ground and seeing things which we don't see, and then we just follow through, then over a period of time, we feel glad that uh, we were part of a larger vision which we did not see at that time. So therefore, at that moment 15 years ago, my ego would have definitely created a great obstacle if I had taken it very seriously. But thanks that I did not take the voice coming from my ego seriously, which was again and again saying that, hey, forget it, forget it. I don't think this person who's telling you knows what he's speaking about. Maybe it's like too much of a utopian idea. And even if it's true, you are not the person to do it. You're already well set in colleges and doing this and doing that. So therefore, uh, that's my experience on how to cope with the attacks from the ego.
It, this eco village that you speak of, is this something or a place that anybody can go to? So, say for example, if I wanted to go, I could go.
Which one?
The eco village.
Yes, yes. It's www.ecovillage.org.in. It's known as Govardhan Eco Village, and it is right outside Mumbai, 85 kilometers from the Mumbai International Airport. And we have 100 acres, and we have created, solutions over food, water, energy, and waste. We have organic farming, and we make our own fertilizers and pesticides using cow dung, cow urine, and compost. We have almost, I would say, 120 million liters of rainwater harvesting tank we have created for aquifer recharge. We also have almost 70% of our energy needs coming from solar. We also have our own, uh, you know, biogas plants. And for waste, we have created what is known as soil biotechnology plant, which is an intellectual property of IIT Mumbai, created by my friend and classmate Dr. Biplab Patnaik, where we have a gravity-driven sewerage system, and all the sewage water is collected in a collection tank, and then it goes through a whole series of root bacteria of plants specifically chosen, and then hardened soil and soil bacteria and geophagous earthworms. And what comes out is 40 million liters of fish fit water used for irrigation every year. So, if anybody is interested in creating an eco village, they have to plan mainly four things: food, water, energy, and waste. And we have one vertical called Eco Village Consulting, where we invite people who are interested to recreate an eco village in their own location anywhere in the world. We help them and guide them.
That's very impressive. Is the mission then to set an example for others to follow in those footsteps, or do you plan on opening and creating and building more villages?
Well, on our own, we are more inclined to actually support others, and we are setting the example, and we want others, and we can do hand holding, we can do consulting. In fact, as we speak, we have students from University of Utah, University of Notre Dame, City University of New York, and various other universities from study abroad program, from America, from Europe, from Australia, who come on a regular basis. We also have yoga programs happening there, Ayurveda wellness facilities there, and all the SOPs on how to create an eco village we have with us. And we would be more inclined to help others recreate an eco village.
It's very impressive. And would people be able to go there and almost see it as having a spiritual retreat of some sort?
Yes.
Like, can they go there, leave their phones and social media behind, and just be present and to learn? They can do this.
Yes, we have, of course, we have 100 rooms of different categories. We have regular retreats which we conduct. People can come and sign up for the retreats. We have, to be honest, high speed internet also. But then when we have immersions, like for example, many people like to work from that place for a few hours a day, and then remaining time have their solitude and do their meditation and stuff like that. But they work from home, so they work from there for like a month or 15 days or whatever. But then other times when we are part of group immersions, we keep the cell phones in the room, come in the halls, and we do our meditation, we do our discussions. We try to dive deeper into our own selves and help each other go on the spiritual journey. So therefore, the vision of the eco village is threefold: harmony between the self and the divine, harmony with nature, and harmony with the community around. So we have adopted almost 500 financially deprived villages around the eco village, and we are helping all the farmers who are below poverty line and who have income of less than $1 a day to increase and improve their income through skill development, through livelihood generation, through women empowerment, through watershed management, through all kinds of activities which will help them stand on their own feet. And we have helped almost 10,000 farmers come above the poverty level over the last 10 years. So we call this threefold, approach of spirituality or self transformation leading to sustainability and social impact as S3 impact: spirituality, sustainability, and social impact. And we feel that many such centers of excellence, and as I call it, that we need centers of excellence or islands of excellence in the ocean of chaos and conflict and poverty in this world.
Do you see environmental damage as being one of your biggest concerns currently
100%.
in the world?
100%. Yes. We are totally part of, the overall approach to try to fight against climate change. And we are very much part of the United Nations ecosystem. We are, as they say, trying to implement all the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And in 2017, we became part of United Nations very interesting, unique initiative known as UN Faith for Earth, where the UN reached out to faith organizations, religious organizations, and said that when scientists share data on how climate change is impacting the world, that information is very accurate, very precise, very fascinatingly presented, but doesn't seem to create transformation in people's habits. Whereas we feel that faith based and religious organizations, they may not have that kind of science and data at their fingertips, but their strength and advantage is when they speak something, then the congregations listen to them and are willing to change themselves. So therefore, UN has the high end information at their fingertips, and the faith and religious organizations have transformation in their control of people's lives and habits. So let information and transformation come together. And UN created a vertical called UN Faith for Earth. And in 2020, I have been appointed as a United Nations Faith for Earth counselor, where I've been, given the task that apart from my spiritual sermons and motivational lectures, I should also try to encourage and inspire people to lead a more sustainable life and spread the message in favor of sustainable living.
And how does the average person make that change, or what can they do to help?
Yeah. So to give an example, that the net petrol consumption or diesel consumption in a city like Delhi in 2016 was almost 1 billion liters. And to use that much of petrol and diesel, you would need almost 12 billion liters of oxygen, which would require, almost uh, 60 million trees, which would have to be spread over 45,000 square kilometers, whereas Delhi is only over 147 square kilometers. So if a person's paradigm of success is I have the ability to spend more and consume more. So then we find that the world's population is growing. In, you know, 900 AD, the world's population was almost zero point 0.4 billion, and it became point 0.35, it became zero point 0.7 billion by 20, year 1500. It took almost that many years, but then by 1800 it came to 1 billion. From 1 billion in 1930 it became 2 billion. In 1960 it became 3 billion. In 1975 it became 4 billion. In 1989 it became 5 billion. In 1999 it became 6 billion. 2010 it became 7 billion. So the speed with which the world population is growing, the number of resources we have is very less. And therefore, all of us have a major responsibility to demonstrate restraint. And discipline is a fusion of intention with action. And therefore, if people start thinking climate change is UN's responsibility, not mine, then we will not go anywhere. The total food waste of US, UK, and Europe combined can feed 1 billion people on this planet. So we have almost 1.2, 1.3 billion tons of food waste created every year. And this food waste is being described as one of the biggest, causes of climate change today. Even more than solar and electric car and other things. So today, if we are looking at our own response, we can do a lot by minimizing food waste and being conscious of what we eat. Simple thing like that. If you take a burger and then you think, okay, I'm not feeling hungry. I took a small bit of the burger. Now it's of no use. I'm going to throw it. So throwing away one burger is equivalent to wasting water for 90 minutes when a shower is open. If you keep a shower open at full speed for 90 minutes, the kind of water which is wasted, that is the water you are actually consuming just to create one burger. And if wasting that is like putting 1.5 hours, 90 minutes of water coming from shower down the drain. So, you know, these are little things which all of us can do in our lives to make sure that we are conscious about whatever we take from nature, and we are conscious about how we are disposing the waste back in nature. If we are conscious of both the input and the output, then automatically that consciousness will create a better response to what we are experiencing today in climate change.
You've made me think about my current situation at the moment and what it has been for the past decade or so, because I'm I guess you could call myself a bodybuilder. So with what I do with my career, I train a certain way and I want to look a certain way. So in order for me to look a certain way, I have to consume more than the average person. So I may be consuming between 3,000 and 3,500 calories, which is not necessary for me to survive. It's more than I need, but I'm doing so selfishly so that I can look a certain way, so that I could be muscular. Now, if imagine everybody had that same goal, to be bigger, to be more muscular, then everybody, or a lot more people, would be consuming more calories. So if everybody had that goal and wanted to look a certain way, that would require a lot more in terms of resources, wouldn't it? So in a sense, for me to have a more positive impact on the environment, I need to be not so selfish and perhaps eat a little bit less.
Well, Mike, I disagree with you. I feel that there is no way the whole world can be one, common blob, because
Mhm.
diversity is the law of nature. And at least you have one person sitting in front of you who has absolutely no inclination to be a bodybuilder or to look in a certain way. So there are hundreds and hundreds of people who would not even imagine, or I would say they're too lazy even to go that route to build,
Mhm.
muscles in a certain way. So there are 7 types of intelligence. So, the first is spatial intelligence, second is linguistic, third is interpersonal, fourth is musical, fifth is, bodily kinesthetics, then sixth is intrapersonal, and seventh is logical, intelligence. So you have a particular kind of intelligence tuned into bodily kinesthetics more. But apart from that, there are 6 other types of intelligences and priorities. So therefore, there is no way it can be common. Number one. Number two, if this is the kind of, like, for example, I'll give you another argument. If someone is a scientist, highly intellectual, and his needs to sit with the computer or study with the books is, say, 16 hours a day, so then that person will start feeling guilty that I am taking too much of light energy, I'm taking too much of electrical energy just to fulfill my passion of studying long hours.
Mm.
So therefore, whichever way you look at it, all of us are wired in certain way that we will be consuming some things from nature more than others. But the way to repay that is by making sure that we become instruments of spreading the message about sustainability. And in other aspects, we maintain, at least, if you have to take 3,000 calories, that's fine. But if you are wasting for 500 calories worth of food, that would be irresponsible.
Mhm.
If you need 3,000 calories and you are eating each and every bit of that 3,000 calories and not putting it to waste, then I don't see that's a problem. But what is problem is the waste. And that is coming out of carelessness, callousness, which kind of shows I don't care. So that is what is objectionable. And number two is, with the kind of influence you create, you have ability to influence other people with the message of sustainability. So therefore, you, through your influence, have now created a lever by which you can influence others.
I guess, yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like that's now a reason why I feel as though I have a duty to have a positive impact. Like, I could have initially been selfish by over consuming and taking more than I maybe should have done to help to build an audience and to build a following. From originally, it was me teaching people how to get fit, to get in shape, build muscle, and so on. Now I feel like, okay, let's try and be a good role model, leave the world in a better place, and spread a good message. And it's one of the reasons
Fantastic.
why I'm so happy to be speaking to you right now.
Great. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure connecting, Mike.
I have a question for you guys. Do you take supplements? And if you do you really know what supplements you should be taking? You see, this is a problem I had for years. I would walk into a supplement store, I would buy loads of random bottles of supplements and just pop pills every day, hoping for the best. When in reality, I had no idea whether or not I should be consuming these supplements. That is where Bionic came into the picture and solved that problem. You see, I've been working with Bionic for the past couple of years, and since 2021, I've been getting my blood work done with them every 3 to 4 months. And based on that blood work, they send it off to get analyzed, and then they put together a very specific customized formula for me, which will last me for 3 to 4 months until I get my next blood work done. And honestly, it's been an absolute game changer for me. They also offer another product called Bionic Go, where all you need to do is go onto the website, fill in questionnaire, and then based on that questionnaire, they can give you your customized supplements. So if that sounds like something that would be of interest, which I highly recommend, go onto the website bionic.com, and you can use the link in my description to get a nice little discount on your first order.
Speaking of fitness, of course, I preach it's important to be fit physically, to have a fit body. But I think a lot of people underestimate the importance of having a fit mind as well. And I know there's There's countless people who may look visually, physically very fit, but they're not fit in their mind.
Yeah.
So how does somebody train to have a fit mind? Because I feel like this is something you probably know a lot more about than I do.
As you have been, exercising on your body, I have been exercising on the mind. So the process of exercising on the mind is twofold. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyana cha gruhyate. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigrahachalam. The mind is very difficult to control and to make tough. Therefore, you need two things. First is persistence, and second is abstinence. Persistence with a practice of meditation, which helps in controlling the movement of the mind, and then abstinence of things which the mind hankers for. And at that point, we are at crossroads when the hankering happens. We see something enjoyable, but then we also see something valuable. When you choose that which is valuable over that which is enjoyable, then that is called abstinence. And as a result of that, your mind becomes strong. Like in bodybuilding, the last 5 reps may be the most difficult. And the mind says, or the body says, let's give up. But then as an expert athlete, that that's where the progress comes. When you go against the natural instincts and push yourself. So just as you push your body and the body pushes against external forces, it builds the body. When the mind pushes against external forces, it builds the muscles of the mind. So therefore, choosing, sorry.
I think back to periods of my life when I abstained from the most, and there was 2 times when I competed. So when you are preparing for a competition, it usually takes weeks of preparation, sometimes 2 months, maybe 3 months. And towards the end, it gets more difficult because you are restricting yourself more in terms of calories. Your body wants to eat, but you can't because you have to eat in a certain amount in order for you to see continued fat loss. But at the same time, you have less energy, you have less desire to train because your body it doesn't have the fuel. But you have to force yourself to train. You have to force yourself to do cardio. You also have to start saying no to other temptations in life. So going out for food and eating these things which you are now all of a sudden craving, you can't do that. You can't realistically, you can't go out and socialize as much because you need to be in this solid routine, going to bed early, no parties, no alcohol, no nothing. And when I think back to that period of time, as difficult as it was, I would say that they were some of the most disciplined moments of my life because I was saying no to so many things. And I almost wish I could go back to having that level of discipline because it also was apparent in different areas of my life as well. So when it came to work, anything which was potentially tempting me, I was so focused that I just did not do it. So it's interesting thinking about that. And perhaps, as you said, I have to practice abstinence on a more frequent basis in order to build that discipline.
I think that's a great story you just shared, and it's so ironic that when we are denying ourselves certain things, the overall feeling of satisfaction and pleasure seems to be more in hindsight. So it is counterintuitive, and therefore all the researchers have shown that happiness is inversely proportional to variety. The more variety you offer to the mind in terms of facilities to enjoy, the overall ability of the mind to feel satisfied and happy goes down. And therefore, you must have seen children who are restricted by parents and allowed certain indulgences only under conditions and restrictions, they seem to enjoy those moments more than when someone has unrestricted access. So, therefore, I think
Yeah.
you really hit the nail on the head with your experience.
I think I've had periods in my life where I have overindulged, where I've perhaps been too focused on living a hedonistic lifestyle, and I have come to the realization that that definitely does not make me happy. If you have too much of a good thing, you overindulge, you almost have everything. I've learned that that is not the answer. And it's strange because when I was younger, I would have looked at that specific lifestyle and thought, surely that is the dream. Like, how can life be better than that? But after experiencing it, it's that's not the answer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
You've mentioned that change is the biggest cause of anxiety. So how do we develop a mindset that embraces change? For example, I've noticed this current life which I live at the moment. I'm single. I'm focusing on my business. Everything is going well. And at some point, I like the idea of starting a family, but there's part of me which is resisting it because I know how much my life will change once that happens. So how do I learn to sort of embrace that more and
Mm.
welcome it?
Yes. I think certain changes happen organically, and we need to prepare ourselves for that. And how do you do that? Is number one, you have to make your mind flexible and supple to change, to accept change. So you have to expect change and you have to accept change. And therefore, change can sometimes neither be interfered nor can it be interpreted. Like, for example, you cannot understand sometimes why certain changes have happened. Even if you speculate for hours and hours and hours, you can't understand. So, therefore, you need to create a mindset to accept change and have the attitude of accepting the divine will. And I would say the best way to do that is four things. One, associate with people who are trying to develop a flexible mindset. What is flexibility mindset? That whatever comes in life, we are willing to accept it and see it as the will of the divine. So it requires practice. So that is called association. Second is books. Read books and literatures which have inspirational stories, especially from ancient times, of people who have gone through change and how they have accepted that change and adapted to that change, risen to that occasion. So that's very inspirational. Then we realize that the change I'm going through is insignificant compared to what they went through. C is contemplation. Spend some quality time on contemplating on the part of you which doesn't change, which is I as a soul, have a relationship with the super soul, God, and that prayer which connects us on an eternal level gives us the confidence that whatever change may happen externally, one part of me has a eternal permanent relationship with the divine which nothing can touch, nothing can change. So when you know that you have something which can never change, that gives a certain level of strength and confidence and conviction. So you need that contemplation on a regular basis. And D is for diet, that to the extent the diet is, in the mode of goodness, it is simple, which is, I would say that, it is not a product of violence. To that extent, the mind will be peaceful. And when the mind is peaceful and still, it is able to process change much better than if the mind is in an agitated state. So I call it the ABCD: association, books, contemplation, and diet. Bring it in your lifestyle and see the difference.
That's a big help. I wanted to speak a bit about desires as well. Now, everybody has desires, and I've noticed with myself, as I have got older, my desires have changed over time. And in an ideal world, I only want to have the desires for things which I know are going to be good for me. And I know sometimes that I have these desires for things which I know is not going to be beneficial for me. It's like almost an annoyance to have it because I don't want it to be there. And there's a quote from Naval Ravikant, which I think it sticks with me. And a desire is a promise that we make to ourselves to be unhappy until we get what it is that we want. So, is there any way to change the desires that we have in order to have desires for things which are going to be good for us?
Yes, when you allow your desires to be controlled by your intelligence. So, therefore, when is the use of intelligence possible? When you prioritize your purpose over pleasure. So, when purpose overrides pleasure, then you can actually have a proper path in your journey. If the pleasure overrides purpose, then the entire journey becomes wayward and out of control. So, therefore, you have to make sure that your desires are dominated by your destination. And for that, to keep the destination over desire, you have to have two things: you have to have dedication and determination. When you have dedication and determination, then your destination dominates desire. Otherwise, desire will dominate your destination, and then it's like a vehicle which has lost control. The GPS is showing one address, but the driver has taken the steering wheel and taken the passengers to some other destination.
What advice would you give to those people who are struggling to find their purpose or haven't yet found it yet? So how do they seek it out?
There are different kinds of purposes. One is purpose of life's journey. It's like finding the right destination. So then spiritual literature speak about the long term, beyond death purposes. So that's at the spiritual level. Second is at the ego level, all of us need an identity. So then based on that, we have certain natures. So there are various psychophysical, psychometric tests and other kinds of psycho analysis tests which help us understand my psychophysical nature. Am I getting absorbed in knowledge? Am I getting absorbed in conflict? Am I getting absorbed in money? Am I getting absorbed in just leading a stable life? So these are the four broad categories of absorption where we get, inspired. So you check that out, and if you have a well-wisher who knows you well, they'll be able to identify much better than us sometimes. So then once your psychophysical nature is identified, then based on that, then you can come to overall taking control of your mind intelligence and your body. So then mind body intelligence is your current day-to-day existence, and whatever needs are there to keep ourselves comfortable, we need to do that. So therefore, there is a purpose, there is a psychophysical nature, and there is pleasure which we seek from our daily activities. All these three need to be balanced, and depending on your overall purpose, the other two can actually fall in line.
And you felt like for you, it was very apparent from an early age that your purpose was to follow the path which you've currently chosen.
I was lucky because it was pretty clear for me that this is what I want to do. And I stuck to it, and I've been doing it for the last 30 years.
I wanted
Okay.
to touch upon, I wanted to touch upon karma. What is? 'Cause sometimes I feel like it does exist and it doesn't exist. Like, for example, if something bad happens to me or something doesn't go my way, I will just say to myself, "Oh well, I probably deserve that, so it is what it is. Let's move on." But one thing I sometimes struggle to understand is how there's some people out there who I don't think are good people and they don't do good things. But why do they have success, whether it be within their career, fame, or financially? It doesn't seem to add up or make sense to me.
Many times, if you look at events which are happening only currently, then you will have that kind of thought. But
Hmm.
for example, if someone sees externally Warren Buffet, then they'll see that, oh, here is a person who lives in a simple house, and seems to be like a nice, friendly old man living next door. But then you have to look back at his history of investments. And then if you look at his history of several decades of investments, then that has compounded and become what it is in terms of returns today. Similarly, you may see some success coming in someone's life, but you may have no clue of the investments of the pious actions he has done. Just as Warren Buffett's investments are not visible to us, similarly, a person's good actions investment is not visible to us. So, therefore, we have to know that we only have visibility over a small slice of reality. We only see the tip of the iceberg. The major part of the iceberg is below the water.
And what is the general theory of karma, or at least what do you believe in how it works? If we do something bad
Yes.
in this current life, do we get punished for that in the current life, or do we get punished for that in our next life? And it's the same thing for doing good. Are you rewarded for doing good in this present life, or does that happen in another life?
The law of karma has three factors. One is the soul, who's the desiring factor. Then there is the super soul, who's the sanctioning factor. And there is the material nature, which is the facilitating factor. So, for example, suppose I have kept my hand like this. I desire at this stage, I want to lift my hand. That's a desire. So, as a soul, I'm the desiring factor. I'm the desiring doer. That desire, as soon as I've desired, I want to lift my right hand. The super soul or the Lord, he goes through all my different past lives, activities, credits, and sees whether I deserve at this moment to be able to lift this. And if the karmic account shows that yes, I have the ability to lift this based on my various karmic past, then immediately the super soul gives sanction, gives order to the material nature, which is the cells within the hand. Okay, you are allowed to lift. And then at this moment, I am able to lift because the material nature is sanctioning that. Okay, is facilitating that under the sanction of the Lord. So the soul is desirer, the super soul is the sanctioner, and the material nature is facilitator. So therefore, at some point of time, certain people, even if they desire, I want to lift my hand, which is very simple task, they cannot do that because their current karmic uh, reactions have become in such a way that they are not sanctioned the lifting of the hand at this stage. So yes, as per the Bhagavad Gita, all of these karmic actions have certain reactions, and the whole process is facilitated by the supercomputer, who's the super soul, who is noting each and every action and reaction every moment and puts all the dots together. So that's what the Bhagavad Gita is teaching. Karmano hapi bodhavyam cha vikarmana, akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. The principles of karma, akarma, vikarma are very, very complex and challenging and difficult to understand. But we have to understand that yes, there is a cause beyond all of these things. And during the COVID, people realized it than never before that given everything available at our disposal, still seems to be certain things are beyond our control. And there is a controller who is beyond all of our cumulative intelligence put together. So I
So
think
for
it's
if this, let's take for example two people. One person has they've lived a life where they have done good. They have been a good person. There's another person who has been the opposite, who has been a bad person. What happens to both those individuals when they die? What do you believe happens afterwards?
yeah. So urdhvam gachanti sattvastva madhye tishtanti bharata jaganya vrittastha adho gachanti tamasa. So the Gita is describing that depending on what kind of activity we do, if someone is doing something positive, so there are three categories. One is the person who breaks the law. I see the red signal, I decide I will overlook the red signal, I will rebel against the red signal and cross even if the signal is red. So then I get penalized, I get the ticket. Then there is a second category who sees the red signal, waits till the red signal becomes green, and then drives. So they are the law abiders. So there is a lawbreaker, there is a law abider. And then the third is the traffic police themselves, who are helping maintain the red and green and yellow signals, orange signals, and maintain the traffic. So these are the three categories of souls in this world: those who break the law, those who follow the law, and those who facilitate maintaining of the law by supporting the law enforcing agencies. So therefore, these are the three types of karmas which can be done. And depending on that, just like a simple example of the traffic cop and the car at the red at the signal, there can be three types of reactions.
So, but what would happen? Like, are they punished in another life if they have done bad?
Not only in next life, they could be punished in this life also. And there could be like a whole complex process of how that happens. But the main principle is the there are two types of people in this world: one who goes through pain and punishment, and second one who goes through the pain and punishment and knows the purpose behind the pain and punishment. The purpose behind the pain and punishment is reformation. When the cop is coming and giving the ticket, the purpose is not that the cop is experiencing some sadistic pleasure for doing that. The cop has a duty to make sure that everybody follows the law. And being penalized, hopefully, transforms the person's attitudes in future, and they are more respectful towards the law and follow the law rather than break the law. So the idea behind all of that is correction and transformation.
So, if somebody is going through their life and they seem to feel like they are just constantly being punished and are suffering and never seem to have good luck, could that possibly be down to the fact that they are being punished for something they have done in a previous life?
Yes, could be.
Interesting.
But Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. The the whole intricacies of action, inaction, and forbidden action is very, very difficult to decipher, because there are too many complex considerations while the performance of action is being done. So for what all we are getting reactions is millions and millions of events are being recorded every moment, for which data is being kept by the super soul. So it's very difficult for the human mind to process and put a finger between the cause and the effect, and the effect and the cause, for a
Mhm.
perfect alignment of the cause and effect.
Interesting. I wanted to touch upon happiness a little bit. I've actually had a few people on the podcast who have written books upon this. Scott Galloway, Mo Gaudat. It seems to be something which we all strive to want. We all want to be happy for the majority of our lives. What do you think are the keys to being happy? What do you think makes a person happy?
Happiness is at 5 levels. One is physical happiness, which comes from sensual pleasures. When the eyes connect with something beautiful, the ears hear something melodious, or some appreciation. When the tongue tastes something delicious, that's pleasure, that's happiness. But that's sensual happiness. Above sensual happiness, second level is mental happiness. You hear some poetry, you hear some nice music, it touches the mind actually. The third level is intellectual happiness, where you come with certain solutions to problems, and it's an aha moment. It's intellectually challenging, and therefore that intellectual happiness is higher than mental and sensual. The fourth level is egoistical happiness, which is sense of achievement, accomplishment. And that is higher, because to achieve that, people can give up the below three. People can give up the physical happiness, they can give up the sensual happiness, they can give up even intellectual happiness, because they want to experience that sense of achievement and accomplishment and feeling great and feeling in control. But beyond the fourth level of egoistical happiness is the fifth level, called spiritual happiness. And spiritual happiness is unlimited, unceasing, ever growing, ever fresh. And therefore, if sensual happiness is like half a dollar, and mental happiness is three quarters of a dollar, if intellectual happiness is like a dollar, egoistical happiness is like $1.5, spiritual happiness is like $1 billion. And therefore, Ramante Yogino Anante Satyananda Chidatmani. The yogis are those who are aspiring for that pleasure coming and uprising from the soul. So now if you dissect each one of these, the causes for happiness within each one, will go into different subpoints. What makes somebody sensually happy? What makes somebody mentally happy? What makes somebody intellectually happy? What makes somebody egoistically happy? So then you can, dissect that further and get into more details.
Am I right in assuming that you have reached that peak of spiritually being extremely happy?
Well, within, like, from a person who is aspiring for sensual happiness, from that perspective, yes, I have experienced something which is much higher. But from the potential of what is available within spiritual happiness, I'm still, short of what the overall potential is. So therefore, I would say I'm also a work in progress when it comes to experiencing the full potential of spiritual happiness.
Do you know people that have achieved that?
Yes, I have experienced, and I have connected with people who have experienced that, and there are detailed symptoms described. There is a whole description about how you can identify, how you can actually, try to come to that platform and things like that. And that word in the Bhagavad Gita is called Sthita Pragya. Stita pragyasya ka bhasha, samadhistasya kleshava. So, therefore, one of the prime symptoms of such people is they are experiencing such deep joy and satisfaction within that the greatness of a person is judged by their ability to tolerate provoking situation. They are experiencing such depth of pleasure within that the discomfort and disturbances of this world do not affect, because they have an oceanic depth of spiritual pleasure.
So, for the average person, is there any daily practices that they could follow? Any habits that you would recommend for them to implement in order to improve their overall happiness on a daily basis?
Well, any kind of meditation practice which you feel inspiring, you can do. I personally chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you can Google Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is what I personally chant, and I have experienced great transformation and improvement in my consciousness by chanting on a regular basis.
You said before that success is when you sleep with a peaceful mind and wake up with a grateful heart. What do you mean by this?
Well, when you sleep, you realize that whatever you have accomplished has happened because of the support of many. And when you wake up feeling grateful that Lord has allowed you to be an instrument in His will and reach so far.
And if you could teach the entire world just one concept to live by, what would it be and why?
The one concept I would really like people to experience is forgiveness, is to call off the war on reality. Many times, our inability to forgive results in compounding conflicts, and we are living in a conflict and war torn world. And the world can definitely do with many more people with a forgiving heart. It will make the world a better place and a more peaceful place to live.
Do you think a truly peaceful world can exist? Or
Well,
is war just a part
yes,
of human nature?
there is a circle of influence and circle of concern. So I can only speak of the circle of influence as a spiritual practitioner, because we are not having access to the geopolitical world. We are only having access to the personal world of the mind and the senses and the desires. So to the extent one is able to transform one's own heart and make the individual self happy, sum total of happy souls will add positivity and happiness in the world, and a sum total of conflicted souls will add more conflict.
I really appreciate your time. It's been a very enlightening conversation for me, and I appreciate your patience with me, because this is me diving into the deep end and getting out of my comfort zone. But it's definitely something which I want to look into a lot more. So yeah, thank you for this conversation. Is there anything in particular which you are working towards at the moment, or any interesting things you've got going on in the future?
Well, we're definitely trying to create a center of excellence at the ecovillage, and we are about to establish a culinary school which is going to be completely based on the principles of veganism and sattvic diet as per the Ayurvedic principles. So it's going to be one of its kind in the world. And we are tied up with the National Skill Development Corporation, NSDC, and the Symbiosis School of Culinary Arts, Pune. And this culinary school is going to be established at ecovillage to create chefs, cooks, and conscious creators of food who would be engaged in food in such a way that it will add to the human health and to the planet's health also.
Amazing. And if people want to find more about you, you have your YouTube channel. You also have 2 books,
Yes,
which is
I have my
available on
Instagram.
Amazon.
I have my Instagram and my Facebook and YouTube, Gauranga Das Official, and I've got my books, The Art of Habits, Art of Resilience, and Art of Focus, available on Amazon.
Amazing. Gauranga Das, thank you very much. It's been an amazing conversation, and I'm really intrigued. I want to check out that eco village, so I'll see what I can do and hopefully get myself there at some point.
I've booked a bungalow for you already. Come anytime.
Thank you.